is Tim Bussey. I have the honor and the pleasure of serving as the you all here to Bloomington City Hall for this event, and compliment you on getting here to Bloomington. We are officially the orange construction barrel capital of the world right now. We like to call it necessary infrastructure investment here in Bloomington. So I know that's called other names by other folks. So glad to have everybody here for this important press conference and a discussion about the straw purchase law that goes into effect today. So glad to have everyone, the leaders behind me here who have made this happen, and it's a great honor that the governor chose our city to come and discuss this. We really are very happy about it. I'm going to leave the straw purchase discussion to the subject matter experts. I just want to say, whether it's the construction on 494-35W or the straw purchase law, I just want to point out it's a matter of folks who get things done. The people behind me made sure that we got this work done. And it's important work. And it always has been important work. Any driver in Minnesota, if they drove 494-35W, they knew for years that a fix was needed. And it took the leadership of the people behind me, the governor's office, our federal legislation, our federal delegation, our partners across the Twin Cities to get that work done. We had kicked the can down the road long enough, and we got the work done on 35W 494. The same is true with this legislation about straw purchase. Minnesotans know that there is a need for common sense gun legislation, and this is the first step in that. This is one step. Both 494 and this common sense gun legislation, it is a first step. There is more work to be done. We do need more money for 494 to make sure it gets done really well. But the fact is, the work has started, again, because of the commitment of the people behind me who understand the need to get things done. And being here today is really a testament to the work that they are doing. And I will say that it got done without voting ourselves a 49% pay increase, but that's another story for another time. We won't get into that right now. It gives me great pleasure and great honor to introduce the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz, a leader in this area, a leader in so many areas, and a leader not only in our state of Minnesota, but on the national stage. Governor, thank you so very much for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor.
Love to have
Appreciate
you.
it.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for dropping that pay raise bomb right on me. I appreciate that. So, but I will have to say, we're in Bloomington a lot, and there's a reason for it. The dynamic leadership that we see here, we had an announcement a while back. This is one of the central hubs in our country of the reimagining the chips manufacturing, the onshoring of chip manufacturing, dynamic. It was Bloomington that was at the heart of our bid for the World Expo, the World's Fair, because of the dynamic nature of what's happening here, the collaborative effort, the forward lean on things. And so I am just so grateful for this group behind it. Chief Hodges, thank you. We've been here for many things dealing with public safety and protecting our people, both in difficult times and in times of celebration like this. Commissioner Jacobson, Superintendent Evans, and then you're going to hear from the representatives who made this happen. This is good work that they did. We're here to highlight, we'll talk straw purchases because it's the 1st of August, but Minnesotans know it's also now, since it's the 1st of August, we can officially start counting 21 days till the state fair opens. So it's fine to start talking about it. We'll start gearing up for that. But this piece of legislation we're talking about, and this is born out of tragedy and results. We know that gun violence is way too high. We know that our children are more likely to die of gun violence than childhood illness or other accidents. And we also had a tragedy in Minnesota, several tragedies, where the gun used in those was purchased by someone else and put in the hands of someone who was prohibited from having that. And what this does is strengthen those penalties, the state penalties around the straw purchases. But I think much more than that it does. It shows a continued commitment that we have put into place, whether it be red flag, extreme risk protection orders, and I think Superintendent Evans can speak to the specifics of that. I think in my latest briefing we've issued 71 of those. Those are 71 incidents through a legal system. Either a family member or law enforcement has deemed someone to be at a risk either to themselves or to others, and a lawful removal of a time needed of that firearm. It is a case of proving the negatives, but I think we can probably be fairly certain that in there, whether it be a suicide or a use of that firearm, is prevented in those situations. That's positive work. Those are things that we know make a difference. And continuing to think about background checks of how you purchase those weapons. Not successful in what I would consider some common sense things on safe storage and reporting stolen firearms. But packaged with this deal, and you'll hear from the lead author of this in Rep. Berg in just a moment, packaged in this was also something that was involved in the tragic shooting of 3 of our first responders, was a device of a binary trigger that allows that weapon to basically be turned into a fully automatic weapon. And I've said time and time again, I've carried those, but I was in the U.S. military, and this does not infringe upon anything that was done here on a lawful gun owner. If you're not purchasing a weapon and handing it to someone who is a felon and prohibited from that, nothing in your life changed around firearms. And if you're not turning your lawful firearm into an illegal firearm with a binary trigger to make it an automatic weapon, basically, nothing infringed upon your Second Amendment rights. So I'm just grateful that there's a vision to make Minnesota safer. There's a vision to get guns off the streets. There's a vision to reduce gun violence, with absolutely no infringement on those who lawfully own guns to use them for things that many of us cherish, and especially hunting in Minnesota. So this is a good one, goes into effect today. It was very thoughtful, and it's coming from a legislator who just continues one after another to put thoughtful legislation forward, and more importantly, usher it through the process and get it signed into law so that days like today, we in Minnesota have an opportunity to be a little bit safer. I'll turn this over to that lead author, Representative Kamala Harris.
Thank you so much for being here. In the early morning hours of February 18th, Burnsville suffered an unthinkable loss when 3 of our first responders were fatally shot and another injured in the line of duty. The assailant was prohibited from having a firearm, but, according to the results of the BCA investigation, he had access to several through the straw purchases made by his girlfriend. Our community continues to grieve, and we will never fully heal. We are seeing far too many of these tragedies across the country, and our first responders, communities, and families deserve better. The law that goes into effect today will increase penalties for straw purchases from a misdemeanor to a felony, with increased penalties if the firearms are used in a crime of violence within a year of the transfer. Our first responders, those who heed the sacred call to protect and serve, warrant every protection we can give them. As the governor mentioned, it also bans binary triggers, which is a device that doubles a semi-automatic firearm's rate of fire by releasing 1 round when the trigger is pulled and another round upon the release of the trigger, essentially making it fully automatic. These mostly aftermarket modifications have already been banned in 10 other states. On January 1st, 2025, we will add Minnesota to that list. I want to thank Governor Walz for signing this bill into law. He and countless others have held my community in their hearts every step of the way. Much is left to do to address the endemic of gun violence in this country, but here in Minnesota, under the leadership of Governor Walz, we have taken bold action to protect our first responders. We have prioritized the safety of our communities, and we will always remember and honor the fallen. Chief Hodges.
All right, thanks everybody for coming here today. There's a lot of people out here who will look at us up here and not even know what a straw purchase is. So I'm going to explain to people what a straw purchase is. So if someone asks you to go to a grocery store and buy some milk, go buy some milk. Someone asks you to go buy some broccoli, go buy some broccoli. They want you to buy some chicken, go buy some chicken. Just make sure you wash it off before you cook it, and don't mix it with the broccoli. You're going to have other problems. But if someone goes and asks you to go to the store and buy them a gun, like Gru here, the light bulb should go off. Why is someone asking you to buy them a gun? And say you go buy this person a gun and they're not supposed to have it. In Minnesota, now this is a felony. Before this law was passed, it was a gross misdemeanor, and we were dependent on the federal government, as what happened in the Burnsville case here, to prosecute someone. So this is a good law. And I just want to be clear, again, there's a lot of people out there who will see us up here and may not know what a straw purchase is. So when I ask you to go buy some milk, go buy some milk. But if they ask you to go buy a gun, like Gru said, the light bulb should go on in your head. And if you decide to buy them that gun and they shouldn't have it, now you've just committed a felony in Minnesota. and we're going to lock you up for that. So with that, I'll bring up Superintendent Drew Evans.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Drew Evans, Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Minnesota is a state with hundreds of thousands of legal gun owners. Unfortunately, we are also a state in the past that it's been far too easy for criminals who shouldn't have guns to be able to get them from straw purchasers, as the chief just described. Now today, we have a new tool to hold shooters and their straw buyers accountable for those gun crimes. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension's new Violent Crime Reduction Unit is focused on getting illegal guns and those committing harmful acts off of our streets. This new unit, which is part of one of the largest investments of violent crime reduction strategies in the state of Minnesota in recent history, is specifically addressing violent crime and was proposed by Governor Walz and funded by our legislature in the last year. What it does is it brings together the expertise of BCA agents and 12 different local law enforcement agencies, including Chief Hodges' Bloomington Police Department, coming together to address gun trafficking, reducing violent crime in communities across our state, and in our together with our local, county, and other federal partners. This new law is an important tool that will hold those individuals accountable as we do that work that are trafficking guns into our communities. Since the beginning of this year, that VCRU with our partner agencies have arrested 254 violent criminals and removed 135 illegal firearms from our streets. This demonstrates what good partnerships working together with the available tools can do to reduce harm in our communities across the state of Minnesota. We utilize this in an intelligence-led approach that will actually lead through that process, utilizing systems such as NIBIN, our National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. It's a program run by the ATF to be able to identify those individuals that are trafficking firearms and introducing them into our communities. And we now have this tool to be able to have the appropriate penalties for those who wish to do this and cause harm, as has been said. We must continue this effort to get illegal guns off of our streets. The straw buyer law is a valuable tool to help us get that job done. Minnesota already has many good laws in place to ensure safe and legal gun ownership. We needed this new tool for when straw buyers, gun traffickers, and violent criminals that they supply choose to not follow the rules. This all makes all of our communities safer day in, day out with this new law today. And if you take nothing else from this today, as the chief just noted as to what a straw buyer is, you don't have to pull the trigger to be held accountable when a violent crime occurs in Minnesota. So you should think twice before you decide to buy a firearm for an individual that's prohibited from possessing it, because you will be held accountable with a felony. With that, I think take some questions. Thanks.
That's great advice. I will also note, and thank you again to the legislature. Under the leadership of Senator Latz last year, we were to put in a historic amount of $300 million additional with a lot of fungibility for local law enforcement to be able to deal with these issues. But we also left some things on the table last year, and Superintendent Evans and his people and the ability and the speed that they're able to process evidence, especially around guns, has been amazing, but they're constrained by space and members, and that was the proposed facility in Mankato that we will get done this year and start moving in that direction. With that, we take some on-topic questions. Yeah, I'm going to let you two.
Ron Latz, State Senator from San Luis Park. I chair the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. Over the years, there have been a lot of proposals to reduce gun violence. I would be remiss if I first didn't note, in addition to Governor Walz, I want to give a great thank you to the First Lady, Gwen Walz, who has championed gun violence reduction measures at the legislature and across the state for years. And also Senator Heather Gustafson, who is out of state today, but she was the chief author of the straw purchase bill this year. There are a number of things that can still be done. I think there's still some legal questions around youth possession, the 18 to 21-year-olds. We'll have to see how that works its way through the courts. There's safe storage, which I think, if done properly, can continue to provide individual gun owners with quick access if they should need it to defend their homes, while also protecting against turns out many youth who see guns lying around the house and are playing with them happen to be loaded and kill themselves or siblings or others. or seriously injure them. I think the federal government should move on an assault weapons ban. Personally, I support that. I don't know if there is the legislative appetite or votes to accomplish that here in Minnesota. We're talking about guns of war. Really have no place on our streets or in our households, and they're not really needed for self-defense. So there might be a few other things out there as well. There's been a lot around the table for a long time.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's an appetite for it, and I think one of the reasons is, and I'm going to give a thank you to the administration, the Biden-Harris administration. This week we got announcements on the bulk of our counties on the individual assistance, which I can't stress. FEMA on the infrastructure, we know that the bridge is coming out in Mankato, and there'll be decisions made by the county board on what happens with the Rapid End Dam. But the individual assistance to homeowners and the property loss pieces is huge. So I think that helps. I think that's where the concern was from legislators. What happens if we don't get those approvals? Those got there. And I think we're moving down towards, moving towards session. We're already starting to work on some of the things, what the budget's going to look like. I think we'll bring that back. And again, when we don't get things done, we have a lot of things in the pipeline, but there's really important things in there. And I have made no bones about it. The BCA request, we're making too much progress to go backwards. So at this point in time, it doesn't feel like there's an appetite for it. The federal government's ability to deliver on flood mitigation and flood assistance has really helped. Sure. I'm going to put the lawyers up. So there's several of them.
Well, ultimately, the court would have to determine that. It probably would come into effect if someone is charged with a criminal violation of it, and in the course of their criminal defense, they raise the constitutional issue or other legal issues around it as a defense to their case. That would typically be it. The court would have to determine that the issue was ripe and that there was standing for it. And in most of those cases, they arise in the context of a criminal or other enforcement mechanism. One thing I would like to mention with regard to the straw purchase bill, there were a couple of key things that were done. One was to increase the penalty from gross misdemeanor to felony. I was the chief author of putting in the bill in the statute in the first place as a gross misdemeanor. And I think the felony penalty is going to do more in this case to deter people once they become aware of it. But secondly, the elements of the offense were changed to make it easier to prove. What we heard from prosecutors was that it was difficult to prove when you had to prove that the person knew that the person they were buying the gun for was ineligible. Now the language adds, or reasonably should have known. That's going to be much more possible now for prosecutors to be able to pursue that in state charges without having to turn to the federal government to bring criminal charges on that basis.
Not much going on, so go ahead.
Good morning. There's a lot of interest in your record in the past few weeks, and I want to give you a chance to talk about two issues that are coming to scrutiny. The first is the aftermath of the George Floyd killing. And I'm wondering if, in hindsight, there's anything you would have done differently, particularly taking a look at the timing of the National Guard response. And on another matter, I'm wondering if there's anything you think your administration could have done to identify and prevent the fraud that led to the beatings Harold observed.
Yeah, first of all, I'll make note of it. I think the attention coming around this issue and the decision that is one person's decision, Vice President Harris, is because of the work that these legislators did, because of the things that are happening in Minnesota, because of the responses on how we work together. As they look at individual items, they're going to make the determination how they did that. When you're serving in the moment on these things, I think on anything you go back and look, decisions were made in a situation that is what it is, and I simply believe that we try to do the best we can in each of those. As far as the Feeding Our Future, I think what you're seeing this is if you commit fraud in Minnesota, you are going to be caught and you are going to go to prison. It's that simple. And I think we've talked about the things that have been implemented over the years prior to these things about reinvesting in these agencies, especially around things like general counsel. Those were stripped out of a lot of places, and inspector generals, if you will, to be in there. So I think those things will go in place. We know what they are. People will make their decisions. I have a record in Minnesota that's extensive, and I think people take a look at that. They will make their decision on what they think is best for them.
If you are on the ticket, what kind of sets you apart from the other
You know, I said I'm not interviewing for anything. I'm just am who I am and put it out there. I think this is going to be really important, that the best decision and the best for the vice president to make that. So the one thing is that I'm incredibly proud of all the folks who are out there. And I'm just going to say this, yes, I'm a bit biased on the place. I'm the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, and Democratic governors have implemented the Biden-Harris administration in a way that has improved lives. And so I think there's just that's a decision that needs to be made by the vice president, and she will make it on what she sees. And I am who I am. No, and I'm not going to talk on the specifics on that. I think you see things that are out there, and it's I will just say this. I don't know if every high school geography teacher expects to be in this position at some point, but it is very strange to be running on my treadmill and have people talking about the things that are there, and I scream back, this guy is too old. I'm running my butt off here on the treadmill. So no, just going along. I want to see that person, first and foremost, who is compatible with whatever the vice president wants. Whatever she wants is it in this moment. And just to be candid, to put a ticket together that wins in November and continues to implement the policies that we've seen out of this administration, investing in children, taking climate change seriously, working as true partners with states, because I've seen what happens when you have a president who doesn't value partnerships and one who does. And this is all whatever makes soon-to-be President Harris the most effective candidate and most effective president. That's what they need to see, and that will be up to her, whatever she needs. Yes? Yeah, look, first and foremost, this is really, really good news. I want to be very careful because I've not seen confirmation from it. I've not heard that come out of the White House, but having Mr. Whalen and of course, a reporter amongst all of you, this has been something weighing on everyone's mind. At this point in time, not to get ahead and certainly don't want to say anything compromised, this is good news. This is really good news. I would just leave it when someone tells you who they are, believe them. No, I'm not saying anything further. Just like I said, I think the Minnesotans and communities, mayors like Mayor Bussey, legislators, have put Minnesota on the map for policies that are improving people's lives. And I recognize that I'm being looked at because of the body of work that includes a whole lot of people. Well, none of that is true, and that has been fact-checked. None of it is true, and it's been fact-checked numerous times, and every single fact-check shows that's false. But that's not surprising. Again, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Well, thank you all, and thank you to Bloomington and to the legislators for making Minnesota a little bit safer today. Thank you. That's not a decision that I'll make. The vice president himself.